Hello, welcome to the next video in my series, which I'm calling Fight Training Equipment Fighting Back. The idea is that it makes it a little bit more interesting to use a heavy bag or a floor ceiling ball when something might hit you, and you've also got some defense to think about when you're trying to attack the item. So far I've tried pool noodles and I've tried a stick on a chain, and both of them I find quite effective in making it a little bit more interesting than just hitting the bag that doesn't do much except move a little bit. Previously, my brother-in-law suggested trying some snooker balls instead of tennis balls, and I started thinking about different possibilities, and now I've come up with this. It's just something else that you have to think about when you're punching. Make sure you keep your guard up quite effectively, and of course it can be adapted. So you can do things like this. Of course, that can be a little bit dangerous, so if you're going to test it out, you might have to do things like this. And if you don't, things like this can happen. And that was close. Lesson learned. Right, let's have a look at it. Let's go. Let's begin with a close-up of the device. Not that there's much to see. It's an 8mm steel rod. Costs less than £10 for 1 metre. I'm sure people who know what they're doing can get it for a lot less than that. Cut it in half, put some notches on the end, hammered the chains on, and then took some wooden battens made of a very old curtain rail, and that's about it. There's also a swivel just above the rod, a swivel connector, which is only made out of 5mm steel, and I thought about getting 8mm, but now I've had it on the bag, not usually for this purpose, but I've had it on this bag for a couple of weeks as I've been slowly going about this, and it's lasted, it's fine. So 5mm seems to be enough, and at this point in time, when it's been raining almost incessantly, the bag's very heavy, and it's still stood up to it, and that will do. Speaking of rain, it's very, very wet. It's just stopped raining in the last 10 minutes. So this will be a short video, and most people will probably be very thankful for that as I go on a bit. There's also several inches of rain on the floor, despite me drilling this patio a while ago to make for better drainage. There's been an incredible amount of rain. Training at the heavy bag's great, but you really have to use your imagination. You have to half shadow box and half punch. Otherwise, you're not going to do very much. You might as well be standing there throwing one punch after another. Much better to probably to shadow box than do that, of course, though you want targets to hit. This is playful. I wouldn't suggest anybody spend most of their time training like this. You want to spend most of your time training with a partner, or at least training with pads, so there's a lot of movement involved. But it definitely gives you something to think about. A lot of combinations that you might throw quite casually, even just something as simple as that, it becomes a different matter when there's something coming at you all the time, and there probably will be in a fight. Some people love to complain and criticise in comments. Let me preempt one possible complaint. It doesn't simulate fighting, of course it doesn't. For a start, the defence isn't in reaction to your movements, and the offence isn't aiming for you. When you're in a fight, a lot of the time, you've just got to move your head away from where it is, because they're basing their attacks on eyesight, and they see you and they'll be going for your head. There will be exceptions, especially if somebody's been a bit clever. This is different. You can't just move your head around, because if you do, you might be moving right towards it. And of course that could be true in a fight. But this is more likely, especially if you give it a bit of a kick, then it's going in one direction only. And you're definitely going to want to move away from that and not towards that. Not that this can hurt you. You might get a bit of a black eye. You'll have seen in the introduction, I tried the swords and there's potential there for a lot more than the black eye. If I do it again, I'll probably put some goggles on, and I wonder if I'll find out how bad YouTube is for strikes against people who do potentially dangerous things, even when they're not well known or they don't receive a lot of views. Hopefully that won't be a problem. The swords weren't sharp, except for at the end, and I started off with the Hound Skull Bassinet, which is a serious piece, 2mm steel, to make sure I couldn't be hit, and it could be dangerous. I got to be honest, I wasn't as careful as I should be, and it was close to the eye, as I'll show you again right here, but I'm okay. That was yesterday. I was going to film it all in one go and use the swords today, because yesterday I forgot to turn the microphone on. I thought I was out of that habit. Today I can't get the swords out because it won't stop raining, and I don't want rusty swords, even though they're pretty cheap ones. That I picked for the job. A couple of things you can do with this. Using it like that, I find myself waiting for it to move in the right way so I can get the shot I want. You can spin it. If you hit it in the right way, it spins. You can give it a kick in the right way to make it spin. Of course, you want a wider area than I've got here. I could put it over here. There's less things for it to hit. But I can't put a very heavy bag on here. I'd have to get my uppercut bag out. And that's soft as anything. It moves around a lot. You can wind it up if you have a rope your bag's hanging from. That's an old rope. If it snapped, I'd have been unhappy. And it should run a bit longer then. I think it's pretty good. If you want, you could take pipe lagging and put it on this, or you could use bubble wrap, or you could hang it up higher, cut them off shorter, and you could put a couple of old gloves on the end of it. And that's really it. I like it. I am going to try to change it. Up there, you've got cable ties securing the steel bar. That really needs a piece of metal work to hold it still. It doesn't become unbalanced a lot with 4 cable ties on it, but it's still not quite what you want. I think I'll use this. It's better than the stick on a chain. It's not the same as the noodle, because when I use a noodle on the FC ball, you may remember, you can do an uppercut, and then while the guard is raised, you can get a good hit in. What will I do next? I think I'll try 2 of them. I've got another bar. One has to be quite a bit longer. And I've got another swivel. And the other thing I want to do is put something up here so I can try similar with the FC ball. Of course, that means the elastic will be shorter. But I think it's effective. It's certainly a different way to train. And got to beware those people saying, if you fight that way, it's not realistic. And I'm not saying it is. But then hitting a heavy bag isn't realistic. Hitting pads isn't realistic. Most of what you'll do to train, unless you're sparring all the time, and of course there's a big exodus of people who don't want to spar much anymore. I don't blame them. I don't want any head injuries. Unless you're sparring all the time, then you won't be training in a very realistic way. But if you spend most of your time on a heavy bag, there's no doubt that this will make you keep your hands up. Just caught that one. A lot more than usual. And that's it. Still working slowly on something to measure punch force that doesn't cost you thousands of pounds like the Power Cube. I'd love to do that. And I've got some more sword-based videos coming up quite soon. And that's it. I think that's under 15 minutes. Pretty good for me. Thanks for watching. I'm Mark. See you next time. Cheers.